Okay, we're going to get started. I'd like to start right on time. It's 6 o'clock. I'd like to call to order FY26 Budget Workshop number 3. Can we have a roll call, please?
Ms. Ramirez?
It's yes.
Mr. Riddle?
Present.
Mr. McBride?
Present.
Ms. Hannah?
Yes.
Ms. Lensing? Ms. Fabian?
Present.
President Rodriguez?
Present. Okay, we do have a quorum. Next item on the agenda is public comment. Is there anybody here who would like to address the board for any reason whatsoever? Okay, moving on. Approval of minutes. Item 4, approval of the meeting minutes for the June 3rd, 2025 Budget Workshop number 2.
Motion to approve.
Motion approved by Mr. Riddle. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Ms. Hannah. I just want to point out that this is something that I missed. The heading should not be Budget Workshop number 2 agenda. It should be minutes rather than agenda. That one got passed until tonight. All right. Any other comments, corrections on the minutes? Can we have a roll call vote, please?
Ms. Ramirez?
Yes.
Mr. Riddle?
Yes.
Mr. McBride?
Yes.
Ms. Hannah?
Yes.
Ms. Lensing? Ms. Fabian?
Yes.
President Rodriguez?
Yes, motion carries. Minutes are approved. Okay, moving on. Item 5, reports and presentations. Ms. Polk?
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to our Budget Workshop 3, but we've added some additional information that we don't traditionally do to give you a finance update at the request of the superintendent based upon the fiscal climate of our country and the state. And so my team is here, and they're going to present the information to you tonight.
Good evening, Mr. President, ladies and gentlemen of the board, Superintendent Vicencia, staff, and our viewing community, as well as those who are with us this evening. I'm Anderson Lattimore. I serve as the district's budget analyst. Tonight, as Ms. Polk alluded to, we have the entire team with us. I will start you off, followed by Mr. Chan, Mr. Loza, and then Ms. Polk will be inserting herself in and out through the presentation to highlight some issues she feels are quite important for you to note. I'll be speaking about financial processes of the district, how we stand vis-a-vis ISB in terms of our standing, some areas of highlight for our 2 divisions, and also what we have done over the years in terms of how the finances of the district have grown. Mr. Chen will follow, talking a little bit about our budget process and speaking to the area of financial commitment, how we spend monies in the district. Mr. Loza will get into the nuts and bolts of revenues and expenditures, specifically related to the next fiscal year, which we are getting ready to adopt, hopefully in September. And he'll give you a financial picture from the from the local, state, and federal perspective. And then, as I mentioned before, Ms. Polk will be coming in and out of the program to address issues of extreme importance. We are fortunate enough tonight to have Ms. Elizabeth Hennessy, who will be joining us by telephone, who will be speaking near the end of our presentation about debt management. So that's an area that we've been very good with over the last several years, as you know, with bonds being passed and not raising taxes. So she will be speaking to that. And then at the end, if there are questions that are outstanding, we'll have an opportunity for question and answer. The slide you have in front of you now represents the 2028 plan, the strategic plan. But there are 4 specific planks, or pillars, as we call them, that we want to make sure the community is aware of. First pillar is that of enhanced learning experiences for our students. Why? We want to maximize student learning. That's what we're about. Secondly, the pillar of facilitating family and community engagement. We value parents in our community as partners. And we want to make sure they understand that, and we want to stipulate that, and that's why it's in our plan. Thirdly, we want children to have a safe and nurturing environment. That's curricularly, but also in terms of facilities. We spent a lot of money upgrading our facilities over the last several years, and also in terms of cameras and things of that nature for safety. And the 4th pillar is something this district, to its credit, and I've been in like 8 school systems, I have to take my hat off. This district is committed and has shown its commitment towards diversity. So that is a plank or a value system in our community as well as in our school district that we are very, very proud about. Let me take for a moment to talk about 3 areas on the academic side that they are as a division drilling down on for the forthcoming year. Literacy is the first. That is for our monolingual as well as our bilingual students, not just the literacy itself, but also a vibrant curriculum. Next, building capacity through our PLCs, professional learning communities. Good, sound, solid professional development to increase the skill sets of our teachers and to build upon lessons learned for those who are very accomplished. And the third bullet is that of equity, which as I mentioned before is a foundational issue that we find in our district and we have valued in our district over what we have done over the last really decade. Moving on to the operations division, there are 4 areas they're going to laser focus on for this forthcoming year. First, human capital, promotions and hiring free of bias. Next, continuing our strong recruitment efforts. And finally, equitable compensation for positions that people occupy, vis-a-vis the market, vis-a-vis the K-12 systems that we have to compete against. An area dear and near to our heart, the business financial services area, is fiscal resource management and accountability. Here, we're looking at improving our strategic budgeting process. We've been doing that for about 2014, Ms. Pope, 10, 12 years. We've been doing this, and it's gotten better every year. And we want to continue that process because it does work. It's a quantum leap over the old rollover methods we used to use in the 90s and early 2000s. And then also looking at improving our schools by sustaining their efforts by having financial accountability. How do we spend our money? It's probably accounted for. Our audits have been exceptional, which I'll note later, and also sustainability. We don't want to start projects, start and stop. We want something that will last over time. So sustainability is a critical value in our financial profile. Third area is that of capital improvement. We have spent millions of dollars in terms of improving our facilities for our students, safety as well as for comfort, to increase learning. And the fourth area is called support systems and structures. We have one of 2 wraparound centers in the entire state of Illinois. That shows a strong partnership and a strong financial commitment on behalf of the district and its community. We have community partners in our facility here, just below us. This is just a wonderful opportunity that many communities wish they had. We have it, and we're going to make the best of it. You have a slide in front of you. If there's nothing else that you pick up tonight, please, community members who are watching this on TV, on YouTube, look at this. This is extremely important. We are going to be going through a budget process. We've had 2 budget meetings and a budget development committee that represents community members who act as critical friends with us. The superintendent's intent, no direct student support will be cut. That is her intent. And that's what we're going to strive to do in this forthcoming budget year. Next slide. Let's talk a little bit about philosophy. We create a strong budget framework. I mentioned the strategic budget process. That has been proven to work over time. We've been effective with our dollars. We've got, as they say in the military, a big bang for our buck. And we continue to want to move forward with that idea. Next, we want to ensure a solid financial basis. As I mentioned about the issue, the concept of sustainability. We don't want to start and stop. We want to continue strong momentum. Thirdly, we are macro-based. We're not looking at individual needs and then summing them up and saying, I need an X amount of dollars. We're looking at where we're going strategically and how do we support that at the department level, at the school level, right down the line. So all those pieces come together to keep up, if you would, a mini pillar of the roof of what we're trying to accomplish for the forthcoming school year. The last bullet, and I'm not going to read that, but I'd like you to just hit those high points. Solvency, compliance, transparency, inclusivity, equity-based, and needs-based. That is a very strong statement, and I believe the history of this district has proven that we walk the walk and we talk the talk. As an example, I will submit to you, for the community's perspective, they may not know, we've had several audits by the U.S. Department of Education, specifically related to the ESSER dollars. No findings. Our findings in terms of the federal government has been exceptional. Not any finding how we spent the money or how we accounted for it. And also, I'll speak to this a little bit later, independent agencies, the Government Finance Accounting Office, the International Association of Business School Officials, they don't know us. They look at our documentation, they ask us questions and queries, and we have to prove essentially that we are state-of-the-art and in compliance with general accepted accounting principles, GASB. With that, I'm going to yield the floor for a second. Ms. Polk would like to come up and speak to the questions that were posed by the board.
First of all, I want to thank the board, Mr. Riddle, for the questions that you posed to the district. We believe that the presentation that we have tonight is going to answer most of the questions that you have and most of the concerns that we've heard across the community. I want to go ahead and read these questions, and then if at the end of the presentation they have not been answered, you're free to reiterate. One of the questions that was asked of us was, how are we preparing for the many financial uncertainties as we begin this new school year? I won't begin to answer these questions. I just want to read them so that everyone is aware of them. What cuts or delays in payments are we anticipating from the federal and state governments, and how will these potential funding losses or payment delays be reflected in our budget? Again, we're going to answer those things in the presentation. Because of past responsible budgeting, thank you for that, we have accumulated significant amount of cash reserves and little debt. That's true, and Elizabeth Hennessy is going to speak to that. What is our worst-case scenario for having to tap into those reserves at this time? And how far down might we have to spend down those reserves in the next 3 years if the financial picture and support continues to deteriorate due to politics or recession? Third set of questions, or question was, have any items for services, programs, staff, or other costs been cut from this year's budget? Next, did I hear correctly that in order to keep services and staffing levels the same as last year, we will need to tap into at least 30 million of our cash reserves this year? Is that still our plan, and why? Is it anticipated that we also need to tap into our reserves for the next several years? And then finally, in a prior budget session, we heard that the district was not planning to cut student services, and we saw the intent on that slide, the superintendent's intent, and she's been emphatic that we're not going to reduce anything that's related to direct students, right? Nor staff this year, but instead would maintain the same level of programs and services as last year. How much will spending potentially increase this year due to the increased personnel and inflation costs? So again, we intend to answer all of these questions throughout the presentation, and you're free to ask questions at the end if we have not answered your concerns.
Thank you, Ms. Polk. Again, she will be inserting herself in the program as we find items that she wishes to highlight. Let me speak for a moment about a longitudinal history of our district financially. Let's look at awards and recommendations, excuse me, awards and I can't read that. Sorry about retina. Recognition, my torn retina, sorry. Loader. We have a history there for you from 2003 to 2024. As you can see, starting at 2003, we had a 1.9 score. That means essentially the state has ranked us at that point kind of low, and we are currently at a 3.9, which is recognition, which is up very much near the top. It's right up at the top level. This looks at we call them our operating funds, meaning Fund 10, Education Fund, Fund 20, which is O&M, Fund 40, which is transportation, and Fund 70, which is our working cash. That's considered the financial health of our district. The teaching point for this slide is that we have grown and been vigilant. And by being vigilant, we have raised our score and our recognition independently by ISB standard from an area that we need to work on to one of the more exceptional districts in the state, at least in terms financially speaking. Next slide. Let's talk about some of the awards. I mentioned independent agencies. The International School Board Association. We've won the Meritorious Budget Award 10 times. That's from, you can see the years from 2010. Ms. Polk, I didn't realize I was involved with all those. From 2013 to 2024, I had 8 of them are mine. Great. But it's not me, it's the system. This recognizes best budget practices by school districts. People independent of us have looked at how we go about doing business, held us against a GASB standard, and found us exceptional. Moving on, let's look at the, again, IASBO Certificate of Excellence. This speaks about transparency and high-quality financial accounting. How accurate are you? Again, the district has won it 17 times, from 2007 to 2024. Moving forward, moving over from IASBO, we look at the Government Finance Officers Association, which deals with not just school districts, but counties, states, also city and county government structures and large nonprofits. We've achieved their award 7 times. This award, the Certificate of Achievement, speaks to recognition for government accounting following government rules, not private sector rules, government rules, and financial accounting requirements. And lastly, it's one time only because that award doesn't exist anymore. But in 2014, as I arrived, we wrote with the Government Financial Office, we won the award again for best practices in budgeting. That award's been retired and the specification's been placed into another award. That is a very short, hopefully informative history as to where we've come from financially over the last 10 years or so. With that, I'm going to yield the floor, and Mr. Loza is going to speak to us a little bit about the history of our credit rating as a school district. Mr. Loza.
Thank you, Mr. Lattimore. Good evening, everyone. So, history of credit rating. The next slide, please. S&P, who are they? So, Standard & Poor's, commonly known as S&P, one of the most prominent financial intelligence companies in the world. They're one of the largest rating agencies, and whenever we go out for bonds, we get a drilling and grilling from them on our financial practices, policies, and our financials. So they're the one that Miss Elizabeth Hennessy coordinates with. We have an interview with them, and then they give us a credit rating just before we go out for bonds. The various credit ratings are on this next slide, and they go anywhere from AAA, extremely strong, to D, in default. Currently, we are A+, which is strong. The next slide will note the changing of the ratings. And we go back to November 17th of 2006, we had a BBB rating, which is noted as adequate. October 30th of 2009, we went up to an A- rating. February 27th, 2013, we moved up to an A rating. And currently, we are at a A+ stable rating. And I will turn it over to Mr. Nick Chin to do the budget planning process.
All right, good evening, everyone. Thank you, Mr. Lewis. Thank you. All right, budget planning process. Yes, my name is Nick Chin. Let's go to the next slide. So again, going back to the history of the district and how it used to do its resource allocations to the present, from left to right, starting from where we used to have wide funding differences across schools, with unplanned and inconsistent school sizes, program offerings, and funding based largely, very largely, entirely upon enrollment. Fast forward to now, where we now have school funding that is evidence-based, right? The state evidence-based funding model. We have still a degree of flexibility and improved transparency, and the portfolio of the schools reflects the greatest needs of the students and the communities that each of our schools serves. So again, why is this important? Well, it shows that the strategic budget planning process that we have in place, it utilizes evidence-based funding systems, and of course, this differentiates from funding according to, and this allows us to differentiate funding according to student need, while also ensuring a base from which students in all schools can thrive. It allows a flexible funding system that ensures that resource use is driven by the unique needs and instructional vision of each school and not rigid funding requirements. And it allows us to have a transparent system that allows everyone to understand the choices made, building trust and enabling strategic planning across all stakeholders. Next slide. Here is information you've been presented with previously. It's the standard budget calendar of events for this current cycle, going all the way back from January 1st through March 31st of 2025. Of course, we all of the pre-workshop planning, all of the meetings, all of the work that goes into that. Budget workshop number 1 was conducted on May 6th. Budget workshop number 2 was conducted on June 3rd. Today, of course, this evening is August 5th, budget workshop number 3. We will now, after this meeting, we will have the 30-day required public inspection period for the tentative budget to be adopted. And then we have our budget hearing and adoption scheduled for September 9th. Next slide. This section is a high-level overview of how the district makes its financial commitments. Next slide. So in terms of how the money is committed, if we're talking through accounts payable, through purchasing, what we're talking about is that a requisition needs to be submitted to the business office. And so part of that requisition process is a now automated, well, not, I shouldn't say automated, but it is an electronic approval chain in our ERP system, Infinite Visions, to where there are multiple approvers of each request. A requisition is a request to obligate district monies. And each of the approvers is looking primarily at their specific area. So, let's say if it's a requisition from a principal, that principal would be monitoring that requisition for programmatic alignment to see that it's achieving the goals of the school and of the district. I am in the approval chain of most of the requisitions as well. I'm looking for compliance across all of the local school board policies, perhaps the state Illinois school code policies, and any applicable federal policies, things like that. So compliance would be another layer of that approval, so on and so forth. So that's the general outline of how those financial commitments are processed in the district. Next slide. When it comes specifically to any contracts or agreements where there are terms and conditions involved, of course, then we have our legal department that offers its lens and review of those technical legal terms. So that is another step that is in the requisition approval process and vetting process. And next slide. And finally, there's the action. The ultimate decision on approving whether or not to proceed with the requisition, placing the order with the vendor, or contracting with the contractor for those services or software or whatever it may be. Ultimately, that decision does reside with the Board of Education. And so we have the superintendent approving all commitments for the district. And of course, I think as you're all aware, Previously, the threshold was $25,000. Now it's been increased to $35,000. Anything $35,000 or above must come before the Board of Education for approval by formal roll call, motion and voting, and then roll call vote. Is there a question?
Yeah, I'm just wondering why it increased.
So in the, that changed across the state. I'm not sure exactly. It was recently, but yeah. Yeah, the threshold was increased from 25 to 35. Ms. Polk, if you'd like to speak to that, but I think just primarily to update it in keeping with the times of over
living.
time, things go up, and it had been $25,000 for many years.
As long as I've been here, and I've been here since 2007, it was 25,000. And so the state changed a law, I think it was in January of last year. Don't quote me on that, but I think that's when it was. And so we talked to the legal department, and we decided that it was best to increase it here. Why leave it low? For federal, it's actually $400,000. So when we're looking at these type things, we're not only looking at it from a state lens, but we're looking at it from a federal lens, because most of our grants, not all of them, but the majority of them, fall under GATA. And so it's just the federal rules, GATA and OMB. And so we really looked at this extensively with the help of legal, and we revised the board policy to reflect state guidelines.
So the next section, next slide, thank you. For the the district, it's been a long day. For the district financial picture, I'll bring up Mr. Luoso once again.
Thank you, Mr. Chin. The next slide will go through a history of the general state aid and evidence-based funding allocations. One of our primary sources of revenue for the district. You can see back in 2014, we were getting $82 million in general state aid. Now, and through 2025, $161,840,000. 26 were projected, is a projected 168 million, which is a 4.1% increase. We'll probably find out in the next week or two whether that's going to be true or not. But that's what we've put in the budget for now. The next slide is general state aid and allocations. This kind of gives a percentage change for the numbers that were on the preceding slide. Again, noting a projection of 168 million, which is 4.10% increase from this year. Another source of another major source of our revenue for the district is property tax extension, or property taxes. And this slide notes from 16 through 2024, and it's what we do note is starting in 2018, we had a flat extension of 52,418,000 for 4 years. And then in 2022, we had a flat extension of 52,798,000. The difference is basically because of the PTAB recapture that they instituted back in 2021. That's not something of the district's doing, that's something that the county did. So we've been level property taxes since 2018, basically.
Excuse me, what are those acronyms?
PTAB, oh boy. Yeah, it's been a while since I've noted that. But it goes back to, I think, Property tax something. Okay. Moving on to the next slide. Property tax extension due to leveling. So here's where we're noting the, the tax extensions that we had as first column totaling 419 million. Oh, Property Tax Appeal Board is PTAB. So the first column for tax extension is our actual tax extension. That's the actual taxes that we collected, $419 million. The tax extension without the leveling is noted in the second column, totaling over the years of 17 through 24, $454 million. And that's where we're noting a $35 million difference by keeping the property taxes level.
So this is my appeal to the Board of Education, that we don't remain level because of the fiscal climate that we're experiencing at the state level and the federal level. It just would not be prudent for our district. You're going to hear later on in the presentation that we believe that some of our projections, it would be reduced. Not because we were not making good projections, but it's because of executive orders and also the fiscal challenges that the state is experiencing, because they too have lost ESSER. I mean, all of us have. And so this 35 million that Mr. LaWosa just pointed out to you doesn't go away. It builds upon that each year. Yes, ma'am.
So that 35 million, that is kind of something that we are in deficit with, or that
Never
we
get
just
back.
don't, that we lost,
We lost.
we lost that
We
money.
lost that.
We can't-
And so because the base remained the same over the course of that time, we could never recapture that base. And so we're building off of the new bases, right? Whatever we make that to be, but it will that loss will always grow because we lost the base. We'll never catch up. So the only way we can, reduce the amount of the loss is to increase the taxes to some extent. And we're asking that we increase it to the maximum extent, and by statute, 5%, right? So, given the amount of money that we've left on the table for the, the years, I mean, we have really been good to our community, and I say our because I live in Waukegan too, right? So we have really been good to the community, and we're still not levying the taxes at the extent when our EAV, equalized assessed valuation, was higher. We're still not there. So we have, as a district, I believe, that we have done great things for our community, but now is the time, if we're going to continue to educate our students at a great level, if we're going to continue to do improvements on our buildings, which at the discretion of the board, the superintendent has done, we have to increase the taxes. Yes, sir.
So how do you answer a resident in Waukegan who says, I've lived in my house 20 years or 30 years, and the value is going up, so my tax bill is going up even if you don't increase the taxes, so you're getting more money already, why are you still needing to tax me more?
Okay.
How do you answer that?
Yes. The reason why is because we need it. I mean, I think that's the easiest
Right.
way to answer that question, right? Because we need it. And as we proceed with this presentation, you're going to see why we need it. We were able to do $80 million worth of capital improvements, and we
Right.
never went out for a bond deal. You know what I mean?
Right.
We did that. We maximized the ESSER money that we got in by not putting personnel in there, except to pay existing personnel so that we could retain those positions, which was an allowable practice. But we didn't put new personnel in there, which would have harmed us, because when we move forward, right, we would have had that cost and no money to support it. So we practically, when we presented to the board regarding ESSER, we put one-time expenses in there, and that was intentional. It was strategic, so that we would position ourselves to be able to survive what we've been saying for 3 years, the ESSER cliff is coming.
Right, right.
I don't know which one.
Well, I guess my follow-up to that is, you said, and I've heard you say, we did a good thing in Waukegan, because
Yes.
we didn't use that ESSER money to hire a lot of new people.
Right.
But we did contract for social services.
Mm-hmm.
What's gonna happen to those folks?
Mm-hmm. Well, that's a good question. One of the mandates that was for ESSER is that we had to do social emotional supports.
Right,
It was mandated, right? So we did that.
right.
So then, if that is a priority, you've heard us say this over and over and over for the district. If that is determined to be a need and a priority for the district, then tough decisions, which I believe that we've been meeting every Monday, I believe, Monday, to discuss where we are fiscally, so that the exec team can make those tough decisions about if we need to pivot, if we need to make some cuts, what are the target areas, right? What is it that we're going to do in order to remain fiscally sound?
Right. And some of the stuff I've been reading says, and it's probably speaking to school districts that are maybe hired people, and now are having to let some of those people go, and they're saying social services have to be spread across the board. They have to be put into the classrooms by everybody, all the teachers, because you're not going to be able to support all those social services that you were doing, and putting them in special people. These are the people that do the social services.
Yeah.
I don't know what you think about that.
Strategies are different for different districts.
Right.
And so the superintendent and her staff is going to have to look at those type things and make those decisions. But one thing I could stand flat-footedly here and tell you is that we maximize the use of that ESSER money. Mr. Chin worked very hard to capture that information, with the rest of the team, to go through the audit. And we're very prideful of the fact, I've said this before, that Waukegan is on the Department of Education website with, I think, one other school district, Chicago Public Schools. And we passed that audit with no exception, no findings. So, and that's recorded out there on the Department of Education website. So we're very proud of that. And then also, when they ask us, do you have any money that's carried over into this year? You didn't spend, and everybody was, frantic because they lost a lot of money because they didn't spend it. Well, Waukegan wasn't there.
Right.
Because Waukegan strategically spent the money. We put it in the places that had the highest need. And we were commended many times over for not having to think it out.
Right.
We didn't have to think it out. The reason why we didn't have to think it out is because we had the unfunded list. So we were just able to put the money
Right,
where we didn't have the money before. And so I commend the Board of Education, the superintendent, for forward thinking
Right.
to be able to do that.
Can I jump in there, Gwen? I also want to state that when we were looking at all this, we were also looking at items that we know we could sustain. And so we were not looking at bringing things into Waukegan that we would put before our kids and have to take them back once Esther went away. So the whole team was very intentional with that.
Yeah,
Mr. Ramirez.
okay. I'm a little bit confused at something because, we talked about did not, have any, reoccurring things out of the ESSER, right? Well, this is my confusion because we do have a large reoccurring, liability, I'm going to say, on our budget. Okay, and that is the large amount of money that that we granted to the teachers during negotiations.
Yeah.
And so that is a reoccurring debt and liability on the district. And so where is that being captured within the budget? Because that was a very large amount of money. Okay, and well,
Yes.
you all know my stance on that. Okay, it's okay. Okay, but there were also other things that maybe we could have done too.
Okay,
And
so,
but where's it being captured
okay.
in the budget?
That's another thing that I'm very excited about. When we negotiated in 2014, okay, if you remember that, that was that strike
Yes,
year.
that was a
When
strike.
we negotiated in 2014, we went away from a salary schedule and went to a tier model. That was not unintentional. It was
Right.
intentional.
Right.
Because the salary schedule as it existed at that time had pockets where some individuals were getting, let's say, every cell was getting a 4%, but the step in one from 12, I'm just making this up, from 12 to 14 might have been 10%.
Right.
From 14 to 15 might have been 8%.
It's all
Right.
over.
But we couldn't attract new teachers because the entry salary was low.
Very low.
And so to correct that, at the time, if you saw what Mr. Luosa presented, we were getting $80 million in general state aid. We were not getting a lot of money in revenue into the district. And so before we would have even begun to negotiate, and if you recall, they were prorating, at the time it was general state aid, it wasn't evidence-based funding. They were prorating us and we were losing $10, $12 million per year. We couldn't take $10 million and put it into the schedule to fix it, because that's what it would have taken for us to get a new salary schedule to fix it. We didn't have that money then. And so we were glad that we mutually agreed, the union and the district agreed to do a tier model. What was the benefit of the tier model? The benefit of the tier model was that it was a flat amount that we were giving them. If it was 4%, everybody got 4%. They didn't get 4% plus the step,
Right.
right? So we were able to do that for 12 years. And we were asked about that from districts across. How did you do that? Well, we negotiated that. And so we were able to keep salaries somewhat level for many years. And so here we come into the new negotiations in 23, yes, because it went into effect in 24.
Right.
Okay, yes. So here we come into the recent negotiations, and there was a desire to go back to the salary schedule. Not a bad thing. The business office only makes suggestions to the superintendent, who makes suggestions to the Board of Education. And so as a result of those suggestions and making salaries a priority, the board agreed that this is a priority. And so because the board agreed that it was a priority, we knew, and I said at that time, if we make salaries a priority, we'll have to cut potentially something else if our revenue was to decline. And so the board then agreed that salaries was important.
Right.
And so we don't disagree. We don't disagree. But what I want to point out, and Mr. Luosa is going to show you that later, a lot of times that when we're looking at these numbers, I might not say anything, and but I'm looking at the numbers and I'm seeing where we're going with this. We were able to go from 2023 to 2024 and increase $30 million and still have over $100 million in the bank. We still, what was that? Recognition. We still ended the year with recognition, which is the highest financial profile at the state. Now, what does that mean? That means that level of salaries become the base. It becomes the base. And so if those level of salaries become the base and everybody, let's say, stay on board, you don't have a lot of attrition, then we will have to look at, that's what you were saying, Ms. Hannah, we would have to look at the salaries, we would have to look at all of the contracts, everything that we do every year, and prioritize. We would be forced to do that. But that's the process that's in place right now anyway.
So
That's what we do.
So that reoccurring, what was it, 26 million?
It increased 30 million. When we negotiated, we said the estimate was 26, but we never know who's gonna come in, who's gonna leave out, It's an estimate based on that period of time and the personnel that's, in the classroom at that time. And then also that's salaries, that's not including supplemental pays, those type things.
So all of that is built into the
This-
budget.
Oh, yes, we have to put salaries in here.
And is that the reason why we're going to have to go out for another bond?
We're not going out for, I don't know anything
Oh,
about what's
okay.
going on.
Okay.
No, we just want
it's in future
Elizabeth
slides.
to present to the board our debt level. I don't know anything about us going out
No.
for bond.
Okay,
Yeah.
I'm
Oh, yeah. Okay.
just was thinking
Yes.
to, that because I know where we came from years ago,
Yes.
and I know where we are now,
Yes.
and the solvency
Yes.
of the district.
Yes.
That it's very important to the school community, our children, and we can't afford to go backwards.
Yes. And it's important to us. And
Yeah.
and that's why we're having these meetings, and they're frank meetings, so that we could talk about where we are fiscally. And so later on, again, like I said, some of these questions we're going to answer throughout the presentation, because we do have the proposed budget, and it's going to show where we project that we're going to be. But that's based on the revenue projections that we have in there and the expenditure projections.
Ms. Ramirez had her hand up, and then Ms. Fabian. Oh, you didn't? Okay.
No, I was just going to say, looking at the presentation, I believe we go over salaries and all of that in the future. So I don't know if it's best if we write our questions down and then keep going through because it, like she stated, it might be answered in the future because I did see those slides in there.
Yeah. Yes. So yes, this slide right here is one of the most important slides for me because we need the money. I know it's a short answer, but it's a truthful answer. We need the money, and we need it because I know some of the community members, Mr. Vukovic was one of them, who advocated for giving the teachers more money, and so the superintendent and the board responded to some of those requests, and I think it was a noble thing, and it didn't bankrupt the district. Any other questions?
Thank you.
As you can see in the yellow on this slide, every year, basically, that amount goes up. So it ramps up every year that we keep it flat. Okay, the next slide, student enrollment. 2016, we had pre-K through 12, 16,685. Through 2025, we had 13,640. So definitely a downward trend over the years. And it's a nationwide downward trend for everybody. Financial trends, these are the fund balances, education, O&M, transportation, working cash. Mr. Lattimore mentioned earlier, these are the operating funds. These are the funds that basically we get graded on our financial profile. And that's how we get recognition or review or et cetera, et cetera. So you look in 0809, education negative 12 million, O&M minus 1 million, transportation minus 11 million, working cash a positive 22 million, overall negative 2.8 million. And you jump to 10 and 11, we jump up to 18 million fund balance between all four funds. 13, 14, we jump up to 41 million. Go on the next page, or next screen, down to 1920, 74 million. So we're ramping up every year, except a little dip in 15, 16, 16, 17. And then 2021 through 24, 25, going from 83 million to 100, well, 23, 24 through the actual audited financials, 116 million. Right now, we haven't had an audit for 25, so we're noting it as unaudited, estimating $110,887 million. $110,887,000. The money in working cash of 41 million also includes the bonds that we sold in 24 and 25. About $19 million of bonds are still in this working cash number. All right, so next screen, shifts in revenue and expenditures. Going from left to right, from 2019 through 2024, those are all audited actuals. And I'll take you through Fund 10, which is the education fund. 182 million in revenues, 203 million in revenues, 205 million in revenues, 231 million in revenues in 2022, 257 million in revenues in 2023. 2024, we dipped down to 238. And our adopted budget for 2025 is noting 239 million. So revenues are going down from 23 into 24 and 25. Now, if we look at the expenditures, 178 million in 2019, 184 million in 2020, 207 million 2021, 215 million 2022, 213 million 2023, $250 million 2024, $264 million in 2025. So the expenditures are going up as our revenues are going down. Not a trend that we like to see. The next screen. Bank balances, this is as of July 31st. These are the various accounts that we have with the various banks. Old National, we have a lot of accounts with them. Checking, reserve, student collections account, the bond money. We have, of course, the payroll bank account, money market, and investments of $10 million. And then we have our insurance claims. Insurance account is with Old National. It used to be with Bank of Waukegan. But that ended up going to First Midwest, and then First Midwest got merged in with Old National. Fifth Third Bank we have about 33,000 with. PMA we have 14,000 with. Arbiter, that's what pays our sports officials. And we'll be funding that to about $72,000 shortly. That's how Colette Urbach pays the sports officials. And IDSLAF. Oh, that should be, okay, that should be PNC, okay. So PNC, we have $13.9 million with the PNC. PMA IDSLAF is not right. That should be PNC. So total of all accounts, $121,215,000 as of July 31st.
Brian, can we get that updated so we can send the board this? Because they may want to look it over before the vote takes place, please. Where you
Okay.
said PNC versus PMA.
Yes, so that should be PNC, $13,982,000.
Brian, could you tell me what the sweep account is? Just
That
what
was,
is it?
that was an insurance account that we had with the Bank of Waukegan, where basically we would, every day we would basically unload our deposits, and it was called a sweep account. But we haven't been using that in the recent past.
So
Right now, it's just got a steady balance of $1,025,000.
And just sitting there
Correct.
earning interest?
I don't think it's earning any interest.
Hmm. It'd be earning interest.
Maybe we should.
What is that? The laws, the bylaws for the insurance plan board requires that we maintain at least $1 million or $1.2 million in the insurance account. So all of the money that's really sitting in those accounts are really board monies that we can really transfer into our regular checking account, but we just left it there. And the reason why we don't bother to move it is because if we don't have to tap into it, I've said this before, if we don't have to tap into it, then we know we're not broke. Yeah, that's just, I mean, I'm just saying. It's just like PNC, right? We had it mislabeled here, but that money that's sitting in PNC, as long as we don't go to PNC, because all of our bills are paid out of Old National. On the student activity side is Waukegan Community Bank, Wintrust. So it's not a bad thing to have it there. If you start seeing all of our bank accounts just dwindle to nothing, then you should be concerned. But as long as we're not moving it, we're fine. One of the other things, I know, Ms. Caroline, one of the other things, Mr. Riddle prompted us to invest money which we have $10 million invested. And so as those bonds mature, as those investments mature, we reinvest them. And so you normally get those reports at the Operation Services meeting. And so we've done extremely well with those despite, the interest rate going down. So that was really a smart move. But with the climate being as it is, I don't know if it would be prudent for us to move more money than $10 million into investments.
So I don't think the concern was why was it sitting there, it's why is it not earning interest?
Right. Right.
That I'll have to follow up on,
Because when we think
because,
investment, we think it's going to be earning
Right.
interest.
yes,
Yeah.
so that I will follow up on, and we will provide feedback to the superintendent. Because if it's not getting interest, then we can move that money into the board account, because we only need to keep a little over $1 million in those accounts, and by the bylaws.
Mhm.
It's just a lot of money
Yeah.
for it not
To get any.
to be gaining interest of some sort.
You just give me
Yes.
Yes,
We
okay.
definitely
Even I
will
get
follow
5%.
up with our bank contact to confirm if that is indeed the case.
Thank you.
We need a new bank.
Right. Some of those online accounts, I don't know if we could move it into those, but they pay 4%. Online bank, I'm talking about online banking.
There you go, start meddling.
All of these banks,
no.
online banking.
When we have our meetings and when we set up the investment with certain rules we have to follow, because someone told us a story before about a school district that made an investment and it was not in accordance with the statute, and they lost big. So, no, there's rules that we have to follow. And if you recall, when we opened up that investment account, we actually had First Midwest at the time, when we made the investment, come in here, and then Mr. Morris did some extensive paperwork that had to be signed, confirming that we were following the statute regarding investments for school districts. So, no, we can't just put it in something that has high interest.
Right, and that's not the intent of the question.
No.
It's simply, why
Yeah.
is that money earned? That's it.
Yeah, but I was
Not to
following
move
up
it or-
Right.
Yeah.
with Mr. Riddle's question. So yes, I did respond to that question, which was we would follow up and let you know if indeed that is the truth. And then I followed up with a response to Mr. Riddle's question.
Makes sense. Thank you.
Thank you.
We don't want
Okay, going on to the next screen. This is student activity convenience accounts. Wintrust, which is Waukegan Community Bank, $1,470,000. Lulu Ripberger and Alan Larson the scholarships are in here. Bank of Northern Illinois CD and PMA IDSLAF, 11,000. So a total of student activities of $1,552,000 as of the end of July.
And that one should be PMA?
What's that?
And that one is correct, it should be PMA?
I'm sorry. I didn't
Okay.
hear.
Let's check.
Yeah. Next screen. Negotiated contracts. This is a nice summary of the current contracts that we have with the different labor groups. Teachers, 3-year contract through 4-year contract through 2027. Hefty increase in 2024, but that was the priority that we did. 2025, 3%, 3.87, 26, and about 3 to 4% in FY 27. Professional support staff, you have the rates there. That one is currently being negotiated. Service employees, that's the custodial maintenance. 5%, 4%, Me Too clause with non-union, so what non-union gets, that's what custodial maintenance people get. Food service workers, the same percentages as a custodial maintenance. Psychologists, that's ending June of '26. Paraprofessionals, going through June of '26. And we're showing the increases for the non-union staff at 4%. Okay, next slide. Days cash on hand for the operating funds. So operating funds are 10, educational fund, 20, operations and maintenance, 40, transportation, and 70, working cash. Taking the, calculating the average expenditures, so we're grabbing what all the expenditures were in those four funds, aggregating it, and dividing it by 360 days. And 23-24 came out with 767,403 average expenditures per day. Then we look at the cash on hand. We had 105 million at that time. We're dividing that by the 767 average expenditures per day, and we're getting 136.89 days. We moved to 24-25, which is unaudited at this point, so we're guesstimating. Average expenditures up 784,000. And the days cash on hand is 127.13, so a little bit less than 23-24. But still better than 90 that's required. So, okay, state categorical aid. That's been going up from 2015, 106 million, through 2024 of 171 million, and 25 of 177 million. That's 15 through 25. So state categorical aid has been going up. On the other hand, federal categorical aid, and this is where we run into 2025 with the Esser Cliff.
Yeah.
So there you see it right there, 24 million in 2025, 53 million in 2024. And that's the lack of Esser money now. So, state and federal categorical aid. This is for 25-26. This is what we're seeing out there in Iowa's. Some of these, if you look towards the bottom, starting with CTEI, where it's grade, we have not seen the application come out yet. But the other ones up above, we have. And Title I, I'm hearing, is a lower allocation than the prior year, maybe about $500,000-$600,000. Title II has not come out yet. And Title IV is out. IDA flow-through is out. But the ones down towards the bottom, starting with CTEI, Truant's Alternative, which we call TAOP, the after-school grant that we called New Direction, District Literacy Plan,
We don't
Title
have
I
money
SIP.
in
What's that? Title I SIP, CTE Perkins, Title III. None of those that we've seen any action on in terms of an application coming out for us to apply for. But yet we're planning the year with these programs, but we're not aware that we have funding for them yet. So a little concerning. Next screen, 25-26 proposed budget. So we start with the education fund.
Mr. Wilson, Ms. Hannah has a question.
Yeah, before we go into the proposed budget,
Yeah.
just to go back to one of the previous questions. why the revenues are decreasing, right?
Right.
But our expenditures are going up.
Correct.
Our enrollment is decreasing.
Correct.
And so the numbers kind of aren't jiving. Why are the expenditures going up? But the enrollment is decreasing.
Mm-hmm.
And, well, we already talked about the expenditures decreasing. So why are the expenditures increasing?
Mostly because of salaries. So,
That and the revenue that we're receiving is significantly a lot less than the number of students that are leaving if you're doing a per pupil. 'Cause just looking at this, the drastic difference of what we were receiving before, right? So even if our expenditures went down for easy number, $100, but now we're making 200 less, we're gonna see that big gap. And
I'm
sorry, go. No, my question was looking at this because again, we know that TAEUP and all of those grants funded come through the state, but also the state gets it through the federal.
Right.
All of those jobs that are tied into title funding, right, that get paid out of not just title funding, but grant monies.
Right.
Do we have a plan if those, if that grant funding doesn't come through, we can't provide the extra initiatives, but also we have staff members that get paid out of that funding. So what is the plan if in the end we're really limited or we just don't get it?
Yeah. For most of the title grants, and Mr. Chin can come up, we've strategically for years taken out certified staff out of there because we have to pay the TRS federal, so it's not prudent to leave certified staff in those grants. So we have non-TRS personnel in there. And what we try to do through the budget process is to put a lot of our supports into the grants. And we work very closely with Dr. B, I think he's in here. We work very closely with you to maximize the IDA grant. And we also work with Lisa to also maximize her grants, and as well as Mr. Chin, to make sure that when we were doing that with ESSER, we're still doing it with our other grants too. Because at the end of the day, this is one of the things that we've talked about like for years, and that is we don't want to budget in silos, because at the end of the day, all of the money
Blend and
belongs
grade.
to the superintendent and belongs to the Board of Education. Just because it's a grant doesn't mean that it's your money to harbor to do what you want. It has to be directly aligned with the
Absolutely.
strategic plan and the initiatives that the district has. And so when we do that budget process, and Dr. Cesario as well as Mr. Moulton look at all of the requests that go to them within the rules related to those grants and not supplanting. We maximize the grants to be able to pay for those students who are receiving services across the district. And we've tried to do that for years. And doing that, I think that we can really maximize our limited resources. Another reason why I got up was to point out that not only Waukegan, we're losing students, but across the state. So if across the state, they're also losing students, then evidence-based funding for us might not go down. I'm just like fingers crossed, feet crossed, everything crossed, that we stay tier 1, right? Because we would get the majority, along with those that are still tier 1, we'll continue to get the majority of evidence-based funding. So just because we put 4.1% as an increase in here, and evidence-based funding went up like 3.1, 3.4, something like that, it doesn't mean that we're not going to get more money. We just have to wait to see if other people went down with enrollment.
Is your pen on?
Okay, now I'm on. And if you look at some of these, and we've, as Gwen has stated, that we've been meeting every Monday, some of these, well, some of the titles, we have heard that funding is going to come.
Yeah.
We don't know when, how much, when do we apply? So there is uncertainty at the national and even at the state level, but there is communication coming back out saying this grant is going to be funded. We just haven't heard of it as of yet, or what it will consist of as of to this point, right? So we just constantly have to keep monitoring that.
Well, and also I'm looking at the Title III grants, right? And knowing
Absolutely.
the alignment and the vision of the current administration, that's where I'm concerned. Any people that are, you know, being funded out of that, or programs that are being funded, if those particular grants aren't funded, how do we carry on? That's where my concern is, right?
And-
Or if they're funded at a significantly lower, or they can also change the rules, right? And say,
Absolutely.
this program will only pay for X, Y, and Z, but we were using it to pay A, B, C. So that's where my concern is.
So completely agree with you. And I will tell you that the exact grant that you're identifying now is the one that caused me the most anxiety in lieu of what we're seeing in our nation, right? But I do want to say that, and it's a conversation that Gwen and I, Ms. Polk and I had earlier, and we keep having, that we're in uncharted territory right now. And
In the 21st
we're-
century, I'm worried
right.
about.
And the 21st Century Grant was a big
It's a
one
big
for us
one.
too.
It's a
But we
big
do
one.
know that that one is supposedly going to be coming through, what it looks like, what it's going to fund. We got to wait on all that still. To my understanding, unless something came out very recent, which I have not seen in the past couple of days. I lost my train of thought, Ms. Fabian. However, I know what I was saying. We are in uncharted territory, but I want the board to know that we've been here before. And I've stated before that we have to be okay with not knowing right now. However, that does not mean that we're not educated and abreast of the executive orders that are coming out. That also does not mean that we're not talking to other districts, not only in our state, across other states, that we're not having brainstorming sessions with our colleagues. As a district, we have had conversations even with all of our administration and our principals, and have had these discussions on what does our budget look like this year, how we're going to have to band together. And I have full confidence that every administrator in this district understands what we're up against, and we're committed to working together to ensure that all of our students get direct service. And that's not just a quote, that is our mission, because we know that even though we may not be getting as much money as we have previously, Dr. Cesario always reminds me, Gwen and LeBaron, that even though we may not be getting as much money, the need is even higher now than it has been previously. So we may have less students, but there is a higher need for our students. And so we have to be mindful of that also.
I want to make sure we're looking at plans B and C.
We do, Ms. Fabian, with all confidence, I can tell you that we are talking about plans B and C. To sit here and run through all those scenarios, I believe would spread panic. Not that we're not aware of them, but we are having those hard discussions and looking at a number of variables in our weekly meetings of, if this happens, then we need to pivot this way. If that happens, we need to pivot that way. Another example of this is, and I brought up earlier to Ms. Polk, is let's think about the pandemic. We thought we were going to close for a week, maybe a month. Nobody ever thought it was going to be a school year. And we were able to pivot and execute successfully because we all banded together as a team. We had one mission, and we knew that students were our priority. And in a sense, we're back in that same era where we're in uncharted territory. But the board should be confident to know that the staff knows the reality of the fiscal state, not only at the state level, but at the national level. And we're all committed to ensuring that the kids get the direct services they need. And so there may be some difficult conversations that we may need to have, especially in the upcoming school year. And I'm not speaking that into existence, but I really keep hearing Ms. Polk say that we have to be mindful of what is our strategic plan and what is our priorities, and put our money behind that.
There's two I see one. Two Title I, School Improvement and Accountability, 4331. And then there's another one that does have revenue. So why are they the same thing? Where you got one that is funded and the one, same thing, same number and everything, it's not, the application is not open for submission. What, can someone elaborate on that, please?
Are you referring to like Title I school
Title
improvement?
I, school improvement, and Title I planning here. What's the
Okay.
difference?
Yeah, I think Mandy's more familiar than anybody
With the
with that,
report
so
card?
I'll let her speak to that.
Good evening, Superintendent, Board President, members of the board, colleagues, and community. Every year, when we receive the ESSA designations from our state report card, we may have schools identified who have been identified as targeted or comprehensive based off of their ESSA designation. We don't receive that official information until late September for internal review, and then it becomes public at the end of October on our state report card. If any of our schools qualify as targeted or comprehensive at that point, then at that point, the state provides additional funding called a planning year. And so at this point, we don't know the outcomes of the ESSA designations at this time. However, if and when we do have schools that are identified as targeted or comprehensive, the state would then provide us with a planning year budget.
And the one above is from past plan year.
Correct. It's for the schools that were identified as targeted or comprehensive in prior school years.
And that information usually comes out in October, am I correct?
Yeah, by the end of
So
October,
that's,
it's released.
The ones up top,
Okay.
it's funded, those were already designated.
Right. Okay.
This is for any.
Right.
The bottom one.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Any other questions on state and federal categorical aid? Okay, we'll move back to the 25-26 proposed budget. Starting with the Ed Fund, estimated beginning fund balance, $57 million. Revenues totaling $245,406,000. Expenditures totaling $271,959,000. Deficit $26,553,000. Estimated ending fund balance $30 million. So we have a fund balance that can absorb that, but cannot continue that deficit forever.
Right.
Operations and maintenance, $9 million, almost $10 million beginning fund balance, $10 million in revenues, 10.6 in expenditures, small deficit of $327,000, healthy fund balance, $9.5 million. Debt service, where we pay our bonds and interest, $119,000 surplus, 2.4 million fund balance. Transportation, $6.1 million fund balance, but almost a $2 million deficit this year. IMRF Social Security, pretty much even, ending fund balance, 5.5 million. Capital projects, we're estimating $8.6 million in expenditures. Fund balance to be negative $19.8 million. Working cash, 41 million. Tort, minus 7.6 million. Fire prevention, 3.6 million, ending fund balance. So keep in mind that funds 10, 20, 40, and 70 are our operating funds. So those are the funds that we get graded on for financial profile. So we're a little more lax with the tort fund, 80, and fire prevention and safety and capital projects. All right, any questions on that? If not, we'll turn it over to Ms. Polk, who will talk about fiscal concerns and challenges.
Can't see. All right, so we are looking at various things that we are concerned about, and those things are talked about repeatedly, and in hopes that when we get more solidified numbers, we'll be able to address them. Reduction in the evidence-based funding is a concern. We don't believe that that is going to be the case, because again, we believe that as our enrollment went down, everybody else lost. And over the last couple of years, even with the decline in enrollment, we were able to get slight increases. And when I say slight increases, I'm talking about between $4 to $6 million. Reduction in categorical aid, it was spoken of earlier that in Title I, as well as some of the other grants, we have some reductions. And so if it's a widespread reduction, we'll have to make some decisions regarding what we're going to do with those expenditures that are in our categorical aid. Unexpected spikes in compensation, when we're talking about that, we're obviously talking about negotiating contracts that we are currently in, as well as hiring replacement staff or anything like that, because we can't predict that. And we could only predict attrition. We can't particularly project where we're going to place people when they come in. So if there's an unexpected spike, that's going to influence what happens with our budget. Executive orders, we can't speak more to that. I mean, it's so fluid. Ms. Vanderbroek, as well as the business office and the superintendent, as well as the executive team, are obviously monitoring those executive orders and legislative changes. The elimination of the Department of Education is a concern for us, because they're going to put a lot of the grants together, and then it's not going to be controlled by the Department of Education, but the state. Yeah, and so
the
then we don't
staffing to
know
get
how
that
the
out.
money is going to be divvied up. And so we're concerned about what's going to happen if the Department of Education is eliminated. Unfunded mandates, we continuously put that there because there's always changes in the law that we have to do this and that, and yet there's no additional funding that comes with those mandates. And so we're concerned about that. And obviously for many, many years, I think since about 2010 or 12, we've been talking about the shift in the TRS from the state to the school districts. And back then, when we presented that information to the board, we said that the impact was going to be nearly $2 million. Today, what that is probably way more.
Right.
Mr. Kiskala calculated for us the impact back then. So I'm afraid to know what that is today. And then, of course, we spoke about leveling taxes, right? So that is a concern, right? So we're again asking the board to consider to allow us to increase the taxes.
Ms.
Next
Polk?
slide, please. Yes, ma'am.
You talked about the potential
Yes.
cuts in the categorical aid.
Yes.
The categorical
Yes, grants. Yes.
grant. And so I guess this superintendent
Okay.
question from the board. Can you get us the list of the potential categorical grants that may be cut?
It's hard for us to say right now.
It's very
It's not
difficult.
out, yeah.
It's hard for us to say right now, Miss Hannah. Let me ponder that for a minute. Let me see what I
We're
can
working
pull
on
together. Give
assumption.
me a minute. Let me
It's assumptions.
think,
yeah.
wrap
Right.
my mind around that.
Right.
I mean, because
and-
like I can see what you're saying. Like there's some that are out there that they're saying these may be on hold, and there's others that are out there that they may
We're
just
just
say
making
they're
an
cut.
assumption, yeah.
So I guess let me
I-
think about that a little bit.
Right, and all I want basically is to see the different grants,
We
that are
provided that. There was a
potential.
slide.
okay, that are gonna be cut. That may,
Yes, I understand what you're
Because-
saying. My concern is that I could put a list together that we hear some noise around, but there may be some that may not be on our radar that may. Let me play
So
with that
it's
a
on the
little bit.
last
I'll
one
circle
where
back.
she has 0 because they haven't been opened yet, and that's because we don't know. So potentially, that's the list that you're looking at.
Right.
where,
The last
would you go
slide where
back
it
on the
showed all the
slides?
zeros.
well, I saw that.
Yeah, so those would be the,
One more.
one more. Those would be the grants that
Yes,
you're
right there.
potentially looking at.
But then we
Okay,
also
the-
have- I think
No, go ahead, Angela, because I think you're hitting me.
From what I mean, it's kind of answered, right? So the ones in the gray are kind of those that have the potential, but I think it's also more that can be added to that list. But my concern is also, like, I know that we have lip leps down there, right? I mean, technically we don't know about that until September, and that's based on last year's numbers. So that's not even an application that we have to submit. That's just a report we have to wait for. So it technically, we might not get cut because they're based on last year's numbers.
Right, but what were
don't
those
know.
numbers? We don't have them.
And we won't have them.
No, what were
Yeah.
they last?
So that would be a different question.
Yes.
That would be a question of these grants, what was the potential money we can get? And what is the potential we can lose? But
Right.
again, they're just an assumption. So we can find out what we got from Lip Leps last year. We
Right.
can find out what we got from Title III for the
Right, yeah.
IEP. We can get all those numbers, but we cannot assume that those are the numbers that we're going to get this year.
No.
And we can also not assume that those are the numbers that are going to get cut.
Right, and I don't care about the numbers, I just want the name
So that would be the ones in the
In the
gray.
gray.
of grant.
Yeah,
So these are all of them?
That's all of
Everything
them.
That
in
could
the
possibly.
district?
Yes.
Okay,
Possibly.
okay. All right.
Yes.
Thank
You will. Next slide. Okay. So historically, the board wanted to see the site-based expenditure report. So we put it in here. We submitted this report about a month ago. So this is the information that is going to appear on the report card. You'll see, which we included, well, we're mandated to include how much we've spent locally from the state and federal, and then how much each school got per pupil. And then I added on here, I can't see this far. So I added on the enrollment, third column, so that, but all of the numbers are relatively close to. So that's what happens when we do that comparability reporting, that we're spending about the same in the schools. Yes, ma'am.
So the only thing that confuses me is with the
Yes.
student enrollment, we don't have a fifth of a student, right? Or 15th of a student.
Yes.
So how are we getting those numbers? Is that they're only coming for a partial day? Like, how are we getting a fraction of a student in our
Yes,
enrollments?
it could be.
And it doesn't change
half-day
us
kindergarten,
significantly,
and
but-
those numbers are, we don't populate those. Those are populated from the state. And so it's probably a half day.
When those kids are only
Yeah.
coming for a certain period?
Yeah.
Okay.
Any other questions?
And the only other thing I just want to remind, it's not to you, Ms. Polk,
Yeah.
but it's to our principals and those teams putting together the site-based budgeting. And you reminded us in the beginning, pillar number 2 is all about family and community engagement. I know it's not required that you have a family presence or, you know, a parent on these site-based budgeting committees. However, if we're really committed to that pillar, I think we do need to see or have a parent perspective or a community member perspective. I think some of them had community members, but I would like to see at our school level more parents be involved or family members being involved when they're coming up with these plans.
Yes. Next slide, please. Nick, you want to talk about your comparability report?
All right, the Title I Part A comparability requirement. So as we've discussed in years past, a requirement of being a participant in the Title I Part A grant is that we don't take away state and local resources from one school and then, you know, replace those with Title I dollars. So one way to comply with that requirement is to give a per pupil amount that is comparable, what they say comparable, meaning, in other words, equivalent, to schools that are within similar enrollment and grade span bands, we can say. So you'll see on the table, which we've shared with you before, with everyone before, we have Robbie Lightfoot. It is a standalone pre-K only site, so it's actually excluded from the comparability report because it's nothing else to compare it to within the district. When you look at the bottom, you will see Glenwood Elementary. That is also considered non-comparable because it has so much of a higher enrollment than the other schools that serve the same grade spans, so that's also excluded from the report. And the same thing for all the way at the bottom for the 3 campuses of the high school, which is still considered just one high school altogether. It is our only high school technically, so there's no other high school to compare it to within the district. So those are the 3 outliers. And then you see the bands that we have starting with Carmen Buckner to North Elementary, pre-K through 5. So those are grouped together. Cook Magnet down through Clark Elementary, K through 5. Those are grouped together. And of course, all 5 of the middle schools being grouped together. And we can see that we've arrived at this per pupil rate of $700 per pupil across those sites that need to be comparable to one another. It results in those non-salary, non-benefits allocation amounts stated in the in the 4th column. And just to kind of recap some of the questions that have come up in the past about this, oftentimes, what this results in is schools actually getting more money than what they asked for in their budget request. So that's typically how we in the business office have handled that, because, you know, we certainly don't want to harm or reduce the level of services being provided to our students at any of these schools. When we look at the total at the bottom, you can see that all of this adds up to about $10.9 million. So $10.9 million of non-salary, non-benefits budgets out to these schools to achieve their goals, on top of what is already being supported through the ASAP team and central office supports that are being provided across the district. Yeah, so we are able to comply with this comparability requirement, this federal requirement, and we are able to exclude salaries and benefits because basically the government, the feds, the state, they recognize that there can be wide differences in the amounts of salaries and benefits being paid at one school versus another. If one school has senior staff, all of the teachers have 20+ years and they're all at, masters plus 30 plus 60. And then you have another school serving a similar grade span and they have, half the staff is, within their first or second year at only a bachelor's degree. Those disparities are considered in this requirement when we submit the report for compliance.
Yes, Mr. Chang. So I understand the chart and how you got this 700 roughly comparability, but what is this money from? Is it a grant? Is it federal? Is it state? Is it?
This would be state and local.
It's state
Yeah.
and local,
Yeah, non-grant. Yeah.
non-grant. Because I thought our whole thing was we provide services based on need. So some schools have children that are in greater need, so they're going to need more services. So I don't understand why you would want to show that every school is getting the same amount and some schools are getting more than they need.
Yes, so that question's come up in years past as well. I remember Mr. Ewing asking the same question, and rightfully so, you asking the same question, because we talk about, right at the beginning of the presentation, of course, we're talking about, allocating resources, directing resources to those areas of greatest need, which
Right.
would, presumably, mean that one area gets more than another, because
Right.
based upon the priorities that we've identified. And so this requirement does fly in the face of that philosophy. And because it is a federal requirement, because we are a Title I school district, specifically related to Title I,
Title I.
the low-income Title I Part A.
So is it just Title I monies? I mean, because certainly some of the schools have more social workers, more paras, more, whatever.
That wouldn't be
support.
included.
Yeah, good, true. And
But the support
comes to
staff is
Title
not
I and the
included in
feds-
that.
Support staff is not included, right.
Yeah.
But even service, contracts for, maybe more nurses but you're not including any staff, so.
Yes.
But even,
So-
forms, or, I mean,
'Cause it might be
I don't know, I think some schools would need more, whatever,
Yes.
of everything.
So how we handle that, if it's district-wide expenses, we prorate it across the schools. But if it's direct services, only unique to that school district, then we include it in only that school district. That way, we can kind of, spread that out, and it won't be skewed for the reason that you just explained. We actually some time ago spoke to the president of IASVO because we expressed a concern, just like you, like we're trying to meet the needs of the schools, but you're forcing us to get everybody equal money. It's an oxymoron, right? So like, why are we saying that we're trying to meet need when we have to put so much into this? Because all of our schools are low income schools. We're required to do this. So it was a very good question, and that's why you saw the business team kind of chuckle, because it was also our question for many years, like, why do we have to do this? But it is a requirement if we want to continue to receive title monies. So we have to do it. You also see that amount, 10 million.
Right, it's only
Right?
10 million.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna say 700 per kid, like,
Right.
I
It's
do
a
that in
whole
my
lot.
household in a month.
Right,
Like, these
right, that's not
these
gonna be much.
kids are expensive. This is, the math isn't mathing there, but also we have to understand that's an average, so you may have to pull more for one kid over another. Ms. Hannah also wanted to clarify, and I know you did last time, but I could not remember. Glenwood was pulled out separately and is receiving a significantly lower rate than the other elementary K-5 schools. So the question is, why are they at $450 per pupil with a significant decrease compared to the other K-5?
Yeah, so that's based upon the budget request that was submitted by that building. So they got what they asked for. Mhm. And I would like to reiterate, Ms. Polk asked me to reiterate, again, that 10.9 million, I know we kind of chuckled a little bit about it, but that
It's a
is
drop in the
in addition to all of the central office money
Mhm.
that's going out into services to support
To
students.
support.
No,
Yes.
we spend way more than 700 a year on a kid.
Yes.
Yes, that's the
Like
point.
that's,
You bet.
I wish
would
I only
hope
spent
so.
that on my kid a
Right.
year.
Okay. You're getting.
So this slide, it speaks to what we're going to do, pivoting, right? And so the superintendent might want to chime in on this one. What are we going to do if there's reductions in revenue or we have unexpected expenses? So one of the things, we're going to continuously review staffing levels and staffing efficiencies. We've had those discussions with the superintendent, and we're monitoring that. She's given us directives to look at some things, and so that's one of the things that we're going to do, and we've started to do. Communicate with legislators about district needs. We've already, the superintendent has already sent one letter out, and we've spoken with a politician about the potential of getting additional resources. So we're always doing that, and then our grant manager is always seeking opportunities and other grants in order to get additional funding. So we're looking for other streams of revenue. Progress monitoring, that is one of the things that Dr. Cesario has really been pushing us on, and creating a module in Infinite, I always call it Infinite Campus. iVisions. I don't know why I'm saying, yes. So iVisions, so that departments and schools and divisions and district-wide can monitor how they're spending their money and ensuring that we're getting return on investment. So we have training for that that's scheduled on Thursday. And so we're excited about that, to be able to help the district and help ourselves to monitor how we're spending. Review of contracts, Ms. Vanderbroek is, if I could call her an eagle eye, she looks at these contracts, and she's ensuring that we minimize our liability. And also the superintendent and the deputies and everyone else is looking at contracts to make sure that they're still relevant, and we're streamlining in that regard. One of the things that we've done in recent years, rather than to do 1-year agreements, they're looking at multi-year agreements. If there's significant savings, we're doing multiple year agreements. So we're looking at those type things. Of course, this is one of the things that we're doing tonight, because the superintendent wanted us to not only do our traditional budget workshop 3, but also to give the board and the community an update on the financial welfare of the district. And so we're doing this tonight, and I'm quite sure she's gonna ask us on future occasions to do the same thing. And so that's what we're attempting to do tonight. And then, of course, to continue to monitor the executive orders and legislative updates, because that's what's really going to impact what our revenue is going to look like, not only for this year, but the years to come.
Right.
Yeah.
I'd be mistaken if I did not state this. One thing, when we said review of contracts, one thing the board, we will be having more discussions on multi-year contracts, and what does that save the board? What is the position of the board? So there's going to be a lot of conversation with the administration and the Board of Education on how we can save money. And then I want to touch on ongoing updates. As we come back from the school year, I've asked the the business office to plan a financial update to our community where we will give a series of informational, I'll say informational meetings, Google Meets with our community on where we stand, what does it look like for the upcoming school year, what are some of the executive orders we see, where are some concerns, how they can help and what they can expect from us, right? So you should be seeing that come out. Once we get settled, we're looking at September, we start launching that series, and we have done that in the past.
Any questions there? Next slide. And so, of course, we're going to continue to sustain the district's positive financial outlook. That speaks to what you were concerned about, Ms. Hannah. We were aware of the potential impact of the ESSER cliff, and we took the precautions, as I stated earlier, to ensure that we were not going to fall privy to that. We're also, as I've said before, monitoring the presidential orders. Everything that I said in the previous slide is really a little bit more wordy here, but that's basically what it's saying. Yes, Ms. Fabian.
And I would be remiss if I didn't say thank you to all those on the negotiating teams on both sides. I remember that lovely strike because I was out there. But really, in the past, where we had no contracts for a while or 1-year contracts to now, if you looked at the slide, we have 3 to 5 year contracts. That also helps us plan and budget better and keeps our cost level so we can fully project, 3 to 5 years out. And I know that you guys are currently in negotiations now. So again, just thank you to both teams for really looking out for the staff and looking at, the fiscal responsibility of the district.
Okay. Next slides will be presented to us by Ms. Hennessy. Welcome, Ms. Hennessy. Just give us a moment.
Hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, good evening. I'm going to present tonight on the district's debt. If we could go to the next slide. Can you hear me?
We're on the next slide.
Yes, we're on the next slide. Sorry.
You're on the next one. Okay,
Yes.
funny. I'm on YouTube and it's not on the next slide. Oh, there it is. Okay, gotcha.
It's like a 30-second delay.
Yeah, okay. So here we're talking about the district's statutory debt limit. This refers to how much the district can borrow, but most of this borrowing requires a bond referendum. So the district has $50,165,000 of principal outstanding. Its debt limit is $183 million, leaving a net debt limit of $133,126,000. That is 72% of its debt limit is available. So I think this is the highest the debt limit's been in a number of years. So that's a good thing. Next.
We're there.
Okay. Well, I have it on my screen, so hopefully you're seeing it on your screen. What this chart is looks at the outstanding debt service, the principal and interest payments on debt, and the tax rate for debt, which is part of your total tax rate. So starting on the left-hand side, we've got the equalized assessed value. In 24, it went up 10.28%. To be conservative, we're not assuming any other increases going forward. And then the pink column, you've got the debt service payments, which are $5 million or under each year, and they're paid off in 10 years by 2035. So those payments result in about 37 cents on the tax rate. For the owner of a $100,000 market value home, they're paying about $93 on average per year for the debt portion of their tax bill. And that is well below what those payments used to be. In the middle of the page, you'll see the highlighted green is the non-referendum DSEB, or debt service extension-based capacity. The district does have the ability to issue some non-referendum bonds, and this column represents debt the district could leverage in the future if you need additional bonds for capital projects. Next slide.
We're there.
Great. So I wanted to just do some debt highlights since 2010 because the district really has come a very long way. So in 2010, the district restructured its outstanding debt service to make the payments level as opposed to increasing payments, which they were pre-recession. Because if you remember in 2010 and thereafter, values started to go down and tax rates started to go up. So we counteracted that by stabilizing the debt. We also did a refunding at that time, which saved over $652,000 in interest costs. Then in 2011, the district applied for and qualified for a Capital Development Board construction grant from the state of Illinois in the amount of $28.3 million if it could provide matching funds of $9.6 million. And it did so by going to a bank and getting a low-cost loan that paid interest only until the year 2015 when its debt capacity for non-referendum bonds became available again. So at that point, the district refunded that balloon payment on the 2011 loan with non-referendum funding bonds. Those were the 2015 A and B bonds. Then in 2016, the district was awarded a qualified school construction bond for $7 million. So the district had to pay back the principal and is still paying back that principal, but the state pays back all of the interest. So that was in fact an interest-free loan with for the district. Then in 2017, we did refund some callable bonds and issued $6 million more of non-referendum working cash fund bonds for capital projects. In 2022, the district importantly retired the remainder of its referendum bonds, which went back to the year 2001 when that referendum was approved. That resulted in a tax decrease for the owner of a $300,000 market value home of just under $700. So that was significant to the taxpayers. I noticed the earlier slides, of course, where Gwen was talking also about the fact that the district has held the operating levy steady since 2017. So between that and this payoff of the referendum bonds, it's been a great savings to the community. Then in 24-25, the district just issued $29.5 million of non-referendum bonds, extending the current debt payments 11 years through 2035, and that's for capital projects. I think about $19 million of that is left in the working cash fund, which is dedicated to Fund 60 capital projects. I'll pause there and see if the board has any questions.
Ms. Hannah has a question.
Hi, Miss Hennessy, Anita Hannah here. I am just wondering, because the homes are being assessed much higher at this time, and what is the impact, or what will be the impact on like when we if we say, okay, increase the tax, how is that? Yeah. I just
So
want to know
it-
the impact that it's gonna be.
Right. Are you talking about that operating levy?
Yes.
Yes, because right now, I don't want to be redundant, but the assessment of homes are really going up. Therefore, the home values are increasing dramatically. And so how is that impact or will
Right.
impact what we're doing?
So that's a really good question. And when the home values go up, because the tax rate and the tax payment is steady, the tax rate will go down. So the taxes paid by the homeowner for debt are exactly the same. You notice how those payments were $5 million a year? If that home value goes up, the tax rate goes down and the payment stays the same because the actual dollars for debt are the exact same, that $5 million or less each year. Now, on the operating levy side, as Ms. Polk pointed out, you've also kept that stable. So if the board decides to increase it this year as needed, given the current financial situation, there will be an increase based on whatever the board decides to levy this November for the 25 levy. And I'd be happy to help Ms. Polk estimate what the cost is to the taxpayer on that. But so far, over the last 7 levy years, when those payments are exactly the same, even if the home value goes up, the tax rate goes down, so the homeowner is paying the same amount. What happens sometimes is some people fight their property tax assessment, and instead of going up, it maybe stays the same, yet their neighbor does not. So sometimes it's uneven who's bearing the brunt of the taxes on the homeowner side and on the commercial side. So you can get some inequity in that case, but in general, when the values go up, the tax rate goes down and the payment's the same.
Thank you.
Any other questions? That's the end of our presentation. Ms. Hannah?
Great.
You're welcome.
Thank you very much. Very enlightening, and you answered a lot of our questions, and really appreciate all the hard work that everybody is doing to put this, not just to put the budget together, but throughout the years, just to keep the district on financially sound footing. And we have district has a lot to be grateful for with the staff that we have. If there are no other comments or questions, I'd like to ask for a motion to adjourn. Motion by Ms. McBride. Second by Ms. Fabian. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Meeting is adjourned at 8:03. Thank you all.